The fighting in the Gaza Strip continues at full intensity, and the IDF is expanding operations into an area where we have not yet been inside the Gaza Strip. The plan now is harsher for Hamas than opening the gates of hell, and a decision has been made to make changes as the Hamas terrorist organization is once again threatening and harming the Gazan population. Things have gone so far that now Egypt is also taking preventative steps against Hamas activities. However, despite all the measures that are taken against them, Hamas continues to drag its feet in the negotiations towards releasing the hostages and ending this war. And today, we will give you a look at the mechanism that allows all of this. In the northern arena, sources in Lebanon say that Hezbollah leader has hardened his positions and may even be trying to squeeze the United States of America. And next door, in Syria, the United States envoy announced that the ceasefire in Es-Soweda has taken effect and the IDF has delivered another shipment of humanitarian aid to our Druze brothers and sisters there. And further afield, a senior Iranian official admitted for the first time that Israel inflicted very heavy damage inside Iran, while the regime also announced that it will hold nuclear talks with Britain, France, and Germany in Istanbul, apparently out of fears of new sanctions. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. I'm your host, Yair Pinto, bringing you all the truth about what's happening in Israel. And speaking of truth, the battle in the Gaza Strip rages as the IDF fighters have eliminated dozens of terrorists in the Jabalia area, destroyed terror infrastructure, and uncovered many weapons. Engineering troops from the 401st Brigade demolished tunnels 2.7 kilometers long and 20 meters deep underground. And elsewhere, the IDF eliminated a senior figure in Hamas's production wing and continues operations across the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the IDF Arabic language spokesperson ordered those present in southwest Deir el-Balach in Gaza to leave, including tents in that area. Until now, the army has not operated in that central strip city where a high-readiness Hamas battalion is located because of fears that the hostages are held there. So amidst all of this kinetic activity, negotiations towards releasing the remaining hostages and ending this war continue in Doha, Qatar. United States Special Envoy for Hostage Response Adam Bochler repeated Israel's position on Sunday, saying there is an opportunity to reach a deal. Israel wants it, but Hamas is very rigid. He added that Hamas has already been presented with the best offer that they can receive. With this in mind, officials have said that sending a senior Israeli delegation to Doha is completely off the table in the immediate time frame, and so, for now, no agreement is expected in the coming days. However, there is still some optimism as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not ordered the low-level Israeli delegation in Qatar to return home, but there is also growing alarm in Gaza as Hamas has decided to try and raise the temperature by abusing Gaza's civilians, creating chaos and terror. For instance, the Egyptian channel Cairo News reported that Egypt's Interior Ministry believes Hamas, whose activity is banned in Egypt due to its Muslim Brotherhood ties, and is planning to renew its operations. There were also developments over the last 24 hours in the northern arena, as United States President Donald Trump's envoy to Syria announced that the Druze enclave ceasefire has officially taken effect amidst attempts to reach a prisoner exchange agreement between the two sides. Iran is also backing down amidst stern warnings from European countries of new sanctions. Senior regime officials have announced that they will send representatives to renewed nuclear negotiations this week. And even further afield, in the United States, there is an effort on its way to replace the term West Bank with Judea and Samaria in official documents. These efforts have already gained traction in state capitals, and there is also an effort at the federal level. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 654 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the orders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. A moment before we begin, I call on all of you to help us share the truth. Israel fights daily against the lies that are spread about what's happening here, and we believe in telling the truth. So guys, to support us, please share this content, send it to your friends, tap the like, and of course, hit the subscribe button so that you'll never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. So we begin today's report with what is happening in the Gaza Strip. IDF fighters are operating in the Jabalia area and have in recent days eliminated dozens of terrorists, destroyed terror infrastructure, and located many weapons, some of which were captured while others were demolished in place so they cannot be used by Hamas in the future. Likewise, engineering forces from the 401st Brigade destroyed several underground routes with a total length of 2.7 kilometers and a depth of 20 meters underground. And elsewhere, paratroopers brigade under the Division 36 completed their mission in the Khan Yunis area of the Gaza Strip on Sunday. And during the fighting, the forces eliminated terrorists in face-to-face battles and using the Air Force as assistance to destroy these terrorists. They destroyed terror infrastructure, including military buildings, weapons depots, arms, and explosives. So IDF forces continue large-scale operations throughout Gaza that are led by the maneuvering ground troops and is supported by the Air Force. On Sunday, the IDF announced that it can now confirm the elimination of Basar Tabet, a section head in the development and projects department of Hamas's production directorate, who operated in the Nusirat area of the Gaza Strip. He was hit by an airstrike earlier in this month, but it took some time to confirm this. The statement further clarified that Tabet was responsible for research and development processes in weapons productions as part of Hamas's force build-up array. Elsewhere, in Gaza City, Division 98 expanded its activities and launched several pinpointed attacks. And during the operation, terror infrastructure was destroyed and the forces directed airstrikes at terrorist squads that intended to harm our troops. Meanwhile, after 3 weeks of fighting in Bet Hanun, IDF Division 99 has managed to demolish most of the above-ground Hamas infrastructure there. But the IDF says that much work remains to be done in order to eliminate the Hamas underground network beneath Beit Hanun. Located in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, only hundreds of meters from the border with Israel, Beit Hanun was the village that most threatened the city of Sderot, Kibbutz Erez, Kibbutz Nir Am, and Moshav Netiv HaAsara. Division 99 was given the task of conquering Bet Hanun for the 4th time in this campaign, and hopefully this will be the last time. And on that note, since the start of the fighting, the IDF has avoided maneuvering in the central camp areas of Gaza, including Deir el-Balach, because of the assessment that Hamas is holding hostages there. The IDF now controls about 75% of the Gaza Strip, with the central camps still the main area where it has not yet operated on a large scale. As in the Nusirat camp, Hamas's highest readiness battalion is located in Deir el-Balach, and because the IDF has not yet operated there underground owing to the known fear that some hostages are held there. Just to deal for the first time with Deir el-Balach and Nusirat, the IDF would have to deploy at least 2 divisions for many months of fighting in both. This is the difficult problem that the IDF is now facing, and needless to say, it would be better for everyone if there could just be a negotiated end to this conflict that sees the hostages released and the fighting concluded. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep bringing you all the updates from the ground. And 1 second before we move on to Israel's other arenas, keep spreading the truth and hit that subscribe button. And speaking of the truth, while much of the world is fed a constant stream of images of suffering in the Gaza Strip, but hardly anyone is talking about the suffering and the hardship that is taking place in Israel because of this war. As we've shown you in previous shows, Israel has been through hell over the last 22 months, enduring missile strikes from Iran, from Hezbollah, from the Gaza Strip, and from the Houthis in Yemen. Cities are under fire, lives have been lost, homes, schools, and much more have been destroyed. And through all of it, Magen David Adom was there, first treating the injured, evacuating the wounded, saving lives under fire. Now, the immediate threat may have passed for the time being. Few missiles are being fired at Israel for now, but the recovery has just begun. Hundreds of people are still in hospitals, communities are still shaken, and Magen David Adom, they're still working, rebuilding, restocking, retraining so that they'll be ready for whatever comes next. They've given everything, and now it is our turn to give back. So go to savelifeisrael.com and make a donation to Magen David Adom. They rely entirely on your support in order to train their people to buy the equipment, the ambulances, and everything they need in order to save lives in Israel, and they do. So guys, if you want to be part in saving lives in Israel, go to savelifeisrael.com and support the work of Magen David Adom. Now back to the news, and we're switching our focus to the negotiations to release the hostages and end this war, which are stuck again because of the Hamas terrorist organization. Although Israel is working with all its might to achieve a deal, Hamas refuses to give answers and the negotiations are not moving forward. This picture emerges in the United States government and the conversations over the past 24 hours against the backdrop of accusations towards Israel over the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. A Hamas terrorist told Reuters on Sunday that the rise in casualties and the worsening hunger in the Gaza Strip could seriously harm the ceasefire talks that are underway in Qatar. However, footage from the food distribution zones shows Hamas gunmen firing and creating chaos amongst the Gazan population, raising the obvious question about why Hamas would do that if they're so concerned about the Gazan population's welfare. Meanwhile, the United States Special Envoy for Hostage Response, Adam Bochler, told CNN on Sunday that there is an opportunity for a deal, and Israel wants it, but Hamas is very rigid. They have been offered many proposals, they should have taken them, and it is time that they release the hostages. If they do not, Israel will take military action instead. Bochler added that Hamas is being inflexible despite Israel having presenting them with the best offer they can receive. He also said that after Israel defeated Iran, there is a chance to reach a deal. Israel wants it. To make Hamas agree, Israel is the one compromising at this stage. They are sending new maps. We need to retrieve the bodies of the Americans there. We have 2, and also the remaining hostages. This is the best offer that Hamas will get, and they must accept it. Every time they don't, it only gets worse for them. My advice, take Israel and America's offers. Let's get some hostages out and move towards ending this conflict. So, what concessions has Israel already made in these talks? So, from increasing the number of terrorists to be released from Israeli prisons, through a partial withdrawal from the Morag corridor, to agreeing to allow hundreds of aid trucks enter the Gaza Strip every day, only Hamas's answer is still missing. You and I know that serious progress is being made in the Doha talks when a senior Israeli delegation is dispatched there, and then when United States Special Envoy Steve Witkoff also arrives to Qatar. However, there is another issue hovering over the Gaza Strip, and that is the distribution of humanitarian aid to the civilian population. There have been multiple reports that civilians have been attacked while gathering near the distribution centers that are run by the American-run Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And the automatic response from the United Nations and other NGOs is always to blame Israel, ignoring evidence that Hamas is actually responsible for these incidents. And over the weekend, there was another incident, and United Nations forces immediately declared that IDF forces opened fire towards the crowd. They pointed to footage in which Palestinians are seen fleeing while automatic weapon fire is heard in the background. However, an IDF spokesman addressed the video explaining that a gathering of thousands of Gazans was identified in the northern parts of Gaza. IDF forces carried out warning fire to remove an immediate threat to them. An initial check shows that the reported casualty figures do not match our information. And at the same time, IDF Arabic language spokesman Colonel Avichai Aderi issued a footage that shows that a truckload of aid is being looted by crowds of Palestinian Gazans and said, thus all of Hamas's lies are exposed. In a heart-wrenching scene, this afternoon, IDF soldiers stood firm, and just meters away, Gaza residents received humanitarian aid that entered the Gaza Strip. He added, not a single shot was fired. The decision was clear, do not shoot. What was the Palestinian reaction? There was no fear, there was hope. Civilians began greeting our soldiers and encouraging them as if seeing light through the darkness. Those who have experienced Hamas's lies know that our soldiers and our presence are a source of hope for the people of Gaza. There is no hunger, no deliberate killings, no intentional harm to aid seekers. There is Hamas propaganda with media outlets spreading lies to save what is left of the defeated Hamas, and this is according to the IDF spokesperson's unit. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report the whole truth. So guys, share, leave a like, leave a comment, and help us spread the truth. We work every day to bring you the information of what's happening in Israel. So to help us, hit that subscribe button and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Now, we switch our focus to the northern arena as United States President Donald Trump's envoy to Syria, Ambassador Tom Barak, announced that the ceasefire in Essaouira government has officially taken effect ahead of implementing a prisoner exchange agreement between the warring sides. Reports on the ground in southern Syria indicate that clashes have mostly settled down, but now there are other issues, including looting of Druze homes and farms by Bedouin tribes, which have been documented by the international media outlets. Ambassador Barak posted on X saying, "It is possible to halt further escalation only through an agreement that ends the violence, protects the innocents, guarantees humanitarian aid, and removes them from danger." As of 5 p.m. Damascus time, all parties have agreed to cease hostilities. The next cornerstone of the path to reducing the ongoing enmity is the exchange of hostages and detainees, and the logistics of that step are now under discussion. On that note, with the fighting stopped and the Bedouin figures leaving Essaouira, Syria's interim minister said that security forces are operating in the south of the country in an effort to keep the peace. Saudi media portals added that the regime has sent trucks filled with humanitarian aid into the area. However, Barak issued a separate statement in which he blamed all factions, Druze, Bedouin, for undermining the efforts to stabilize Syria and urged them to lay down their arms. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio also addressed the issue, stating, "The United States remained involved alongside Israel, Jordan, and the Damascus authorities." Rubio added, "If the authorities in Damascus want any chance of united inclusive, peaceful Syria, free of ISIS and Iranian control, they must help end this disaster by using their security forces to keep ISIS and any other violent jihadi out of the area, and they must prosecute all who are guilty of atrocities, including those in their own ranks. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is a United Kingdom-based opposition body, reported that the number of fatalities from a week of violence in southern Syria has exceeded 1,000. This included, according to their estimates, 336 dead Druze fighters, 298 Druze civilians, with 194 of them having been executed by fire from sources of Syria's interior and defensive ministries. There were also 342 fatalities amongst those same regime forces, as well as 21 Bedouin tribal members, including 3 who are reported to have been executed by the Druze fighters. The observatory also reported 15 Syrian government personnel who were casualties of Israeli airstrikes. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development with our neighbor Syria. Now we move on to our northern neighborhood, Lebanon. So guys, click the subscribe button and stay tuned. Against the backdrop of the United States' demand for Hezbollah's disarmament, American envoy Tom Barak arrived in Beirut on Sunday for meetings with the leadership of Lebanon's internationally recognized government. Political sources in Lebanon told the Ashrak el-Awsat media portal that Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem sought to harden his stance to strengthen Beirut's negotiating position with the envoy. Over the weekend, Qassem declared that terror group would continue its refusal to disarm. However, according to those sources, Qassem did not rule out a new agreement if it includes United States guarantees binding Israel to withdraw in exchange for a Lebanese commitment to concentrate weapons in the state and not in Hezbollah's hands. However, the political sources believe that Qassem's tougher line is not meant to bypass his ally, Nabih Berri, a parliament speaker and the head of the Amal movement. The two are said to consult on every detail of the proposed agreement and in general coordinate their positions on many issues. Now, let's turn to events involving the head of the axis of evil in this region, Iran. But first, remember, we need you to help us share what's going on, so guys, hit the subscribe button. Only with your help, we can reach as many people as possible so that they will know what's happening and how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Now, moving to Iran, a senior Iranian regime official admitted for the first time over the weekend that Israel's campaign of airstrikes in June caused heavy damage to the air defense array and other military infrastructures. And during Operation Rising Lion, the Israeli Air Force gained control of Iranian airspace and severely hit Iran's air defensive network. Iran responded with successive waves of missiles and UAVs towards Israel, which succeeded in doing significantly less damage than the IDF Home Front Command had anticipated. Beyond that, Iranian commanders claim that they downed Israeli jets, but have proved no evidence beyond a few crude, obviously AI-produced images. The facts on the ground tell us a very different story. Military sources estimate that 120 Iranian air defensive systems, about 1/3 of Iran's inventory, have been destroyed or disabled since the fighting against Israel began, including long-range Russian S-300 and domestic Bavar 373 batteries. Israel's successes stemmed partially from structural weaknesses in Iran's defensive networks. Global Defensive Corps notes that Iran relies on an uncoordinated mix of Russian, Chinese, and local systems that do not integrate well because of the software that runs them. They do not have the ability to communicate with each other. And beyond that, Russian and Chinese raiders have known target tracking issues and there is little coordination about these systems as well. Also, the Mossad had large numbers of boots on the ground and operatives inside Iran, which played a crucial role in destroying the aerial defensive capabilities using drones inside the country. For instance, a website called The War Zone reported an Israeli drone strike on an air defensive site near Tehran that was launched from within Iran shortly before the wide operation began. Furthermore, if Iran tries to add new systems now, its airspace will remain vulnerable because Iran's vast territory is including 1.6 million square kilometers, and much of it is covered in mountains and deep rivers and valleys, makes a continuous defense network very hard to build. Iran's Air Force lacks a modern fighter fleet and relies on Cold War-era aircrafts, some of which were destroyed on the ground in the Israeli strikes. Therefore, under pressure, Iran may return to the negotiating table with Britain, France, and Germany this week. This is according to the Tasnim agency. The sides agreed in principle to renewed talks, but timing and location are still under discussion. The report comes days after the first phone call since last month's Israeli-United States strikes on Iran's nuclear sites between the European foreign ministers and Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. The three European states, known as the E3, remain in the 2015 JCPOA nuclear deal with Iran, along with Russia and China, after the United States withdrew in 2018. And the West now warns that if talks fail, United Nations snapback sanctions may be reimposed by late August. Araghchi replied this week that if the EU wants to stay relevant, it must stop with empty threats, including snapback warnings that he said have no moral or legal basis. However, under the original deal, snapback remains possible only until October 18th, when the United Nations resolution endorsing the accords expires. So to make a personal comment on all of this, Araghchi's remarks brings to mind the Israeli concept of chutzpah, because he is in no position to tell the EU or the United Nations what it should do if it wants to remain relevant. Frankly, Araghchi, who should be thinking about what he needs to do in order to remain relevant himself, and I would suggest that the first thing that he'll do is stop being ridiculous and take the E3's very generous offer to him very seriously and stop acting like he has the high ground, moral or otherwise, in the situation. Guys, with that in mind, before the recent Israeli-Iran fighting, Tehran and Washington held 5 rounds of nuclear negotiations mediated by Oman. Major gaps, chiefly uranium enrichment, caused the collapse of these negotiations. To put it plainly, the West demands Iran stop enrichment, but Iran insists that its program is purely civilian and it has a right to enrich uranium for a civilian program. Last week, Iran accused the United States of negotiating merely as a ruse to lull Tehran into complacency before Israeli strikes. However, President Trump had been clear: after 60 days of talks, if Iran continued stalling, military action would follow. And on the 61st day, Israel struck. Iran can't complain about being tricked. They were given fair warning, and they have only themselves to blame for not taking the warning seriously. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will keep reporting on all the developments that are related to Iran, and as always, we invite you to be part of the team by sharing our videos on YouTube, following us on social media, and most importantly, pray. Pray for the hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip to be released soon from the hands of the Hamas terrorists. Pray for the IDF soldiers in the air, at sea, and on land. Pray for the peace of the people of Israel and all the innocent lives in this region, and make sure you pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.